Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I'm back to do the end of the year book tag. I feel like there's always a bit of confusion as to what time of the year you should be doing this tag, whether or not the questions are applicable to the last 6 months of the year, the last half of the year, whether or not it should be done like right at the end of the year, so November, December time. But I think recently Ariel Bissett, who I think was the creator of this tag, let me know if I'm wrong about that, basically she spoke and recently put up her version of this tag, and I feel like I've seen a lot of other people doing this tag, so I guess it's time to do it. There are just 6 questions on this tag, which is very, very good for me because I am absolutely freezing right now, and any time that I am spent out of my dressing gown is not going to be a good time for me. So as much as I do love you all, I'm gonna have to wrap this up as quickly as possible so that I can wrap myself up nice and warm. Deal? Yeah, great. So question number 1 is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Let's not think about War and Peace. And instead of thinking about that monumental failure of a reading goal for this year, I'm instead going to talk about 2 books that I have started but not yet finished. And both of them are quite chunky books. So firstly, we have this massive thing, That Glimpse of Truth, 100 of the finest short stories ever written, which were chosen by David Miller. This was a gift from the lovely Rosie over at Sparkles Books, so thank you very much. She sent this to me for my birthday, and I had this on my wish list because I have been interested in looking at short stories. It's kind of a genre that I tend to shy away from, and I felt like I should build up my repertoire of short story collections. And I thought, what's a better way of doing it than going for the finest ever written? This has a bunch of different authors like Angela Carter, Kate Chopin, Roald Dahl, Charles Dickens, Ian McEwan, Edgar Allan Poe, Colm Tóibín, P.G. Wodehouse, Virginia Woolf. There's a lot of great authors in here. And my plan with this was that I was going to read one a night before I went to bed. And so far I am only, yeah, I'm this much of the way through. So a bit of a fail really, but it's okay, we can persevere. As I'm filming this, there are currently 93 days left in 2021. Obviously that will be different by the time this goes up, but I still feel like I could be on track for reading one of these a day and get it done by the end of the year. The second book, which I have made a little bit more progress on, is this chunky boy. This is The King's Painter, The Life and Times of Hans Holbein by Franny Moyle. I actually requested this from the publisher Head of Zeus a couple of months ago. This is a biography, but also like an art criticism, art appreciation of Hans Holbein, who was one of the legendary court painters of the Tudor court. All of the most iconic images of Henry VIII's court were probably done by Hans Holbein, and this is just a stunning, stunning book. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to show you of the inside of this, but as you might be able to tell from just looking at the pages, there are lots and lots of colour illustrations in here, taken directly from Hans Holbein's work, and it is just the most stunning book. I'm currently on page 162 of around about 500 pages, about 550 pages, so I definitely want to finish this up. Question number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition you into the end of the year? And I did initially struggle with coming up for a book idea for this because I'm not really somebody who reads very like gothic, spooky, atmospheric books, and I don't really dictate my reading by the season. So I was trying to think of a book from my current TBR that fits this, and the one that I came up with was Mrs. Death by Salena Godden. I don't really know much about this book aside from the fact that it is about a female personification of death, and that really appeals to me. As I've mentioned in the past, personification of death, deals with death, are something that really, really fascinates me, and it's a concept that whenever I see it in a book, I'm like, haha, I'm there. This book came out, I think, January of this year, so it's a new release, and even though I don't really know much about what it's about, I'm very excited for it. Question number 3 is there a new release that you're still waiting for? And absolutely, I have done a video all about the new releases in the last quarter of the year that I'm looking forward to, so I will link that down below. But I would say out of all of those books that I mentioned, the one that I am most excited for, of course, is Ask a Historian, 50 Surprising Answers to Things You Always Wanted to Know by Greg Jenner. I'm a big fan of Greg Jenner as a public historian and his podcast You're Dead to Me, so have to have this, gotta read this. Question number 4 is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? I feel like last year when I did this end of year book tag, I mentioned 3 books and then didn't end up reading any of them, so you know what, I'm not going to tie myself to these, but I would really like to read these 3 books before the end of the year, and they are all on the history non-fiction spec. First off, of course, I'm going to pick one of the Penguin Monarchs books, hoping that I have more success with this time round, and that is Canute, the North Sea King by Ryan Lavelle. I have recently kickstarted my Penguin Monarch series back up again after a 10-month hiatus, and I don't want the gap to be that long because there are a lot of these monarchs to get through, and it would take years and years and years if I did it all at the same pace. Honestly, I feel like once we get out of these early medieval kings and we get more into the Norman conquest, I might pick up the pace a little bit more. It's just that these early medieval kings and queens I don't know much about, so it is a bit of a learning curve for me. And also because I'm wanting to script out these videos quite thoroughly, I don't want to miss any details, I don't want to get things wrong, so it's just a little intimidating whenever I sit sit down to do these videos. But it's a series that I really do believe in and that I really want to make a priority for my channel. I think what I'm gonna have to do is probably pop this into my reading for holiday. So into my suitcase it goes. And then the other two books are both on the Queen spectrum because we know I love Queens. First off, I finally have a copy of Game of Queens, The Women Who Made 16th Century Europe by Sarah Gristwood. I have had my eye on this book for so long, so I'm so glad that I finally have a copy. And this, as the title suggests, is all about the 16th century queens of Europe who really shook things up and changed history. So we are looking at figures like the Six Wives of Henry VIII, we are looking at Catherine de' Medici, Isabella of Castile, Mary Queen of Scots, Marguerite of Navarre, Elizabeth I, so many fantastic women. I feel like this is just going to tick so many boxes for me. And then also Cecily Neville, Mother of Kings by Amy Licence. You might know that I read Cecily by Annie Garthwaite, which was a fiction book a few months ago, and I picked this up after reading that because I wanted to get a little bit more of a non-fiction variation on this story. I wanted to see a little bit more of this history. So I feel like I should definitely try and read this before the end of the year, before my burst of inspiration of wanting to read about Cecily Neville dies away. Question number 5 is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favourite book of the year? Now, to be honest with you, I feel like I'm quite a pessimistic reader when it comes to this kind of thing of thinking, this is going to be my favourite book of all time. I feel like I'm almost always disappointed in that regard. If I go into a book thinking I'm going to love it, I usually end up not liking it, which is really bad to admit. But what I will say in my defence is that usually what will happen is that a book will surprise me, and that's always a fantastic revelation. But I do feel like I pick up books kind of hoping for good things, but I'm always kind of on my guard, like, this might not be a favourite, just calm yourself down, hold your horses. But if we're trying to be optimistic and I'm looking at my TBR and thinking, what of these books do I think will be absolutely stellar? I think the standout title from that collection of books is Black and British, The Forgotten History by David Olusoga. I have never heard anything but good things about this book. I've seen it crop up on so many people's favourite books of the year lists, so I have absolutely no doubt that I'm going to love this. And then finally, question number 6 is, have you already started making reading plans for next year? And I haven't got the most in-depth plans really. I don't feel like I'm going to really know what I want to do book-wise, reading-wise, until we get to the beginning of the year and I see like the status of my TBR. My focus for the next couple of months is really going to be to try and whittle down these books, to not buy too many books, but you know, easier said than done. I know I'm going to be continuing with the I Should Have Read That book club with my friends Shannon and Karis, so definitely I'm going to participate in those read-alongs. But I think the main thing that jumps out to me as a book that I'm probably going to be reading in the new year is Ulysses by James Joyce. For better or for worse. Me and Kieran for a long time have been talking about doing a buddy read of Ulysses, and I feel like 2022 is probably most likely when that's going to happen. So, you know, deep breaths, we can do this, we can do it. But yes, those are all of my answers to the end of the year book tag. Do let me know what your plans are for the end of the year reading and what any of your answers would have been to these questions. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.